This reading will be on Chad Aaron Boseman and Jack Roosevelt Robinson. These two men are the same soul. In this reading, I will talk about the life of this soul and why he chose to reincarnate.
Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. When I dare to challenge the system that would relegate us to victims and stereotypes with no clear historical backgrounds, no hopes or talents, when I questioned that method of portrayal, a different path opened up for me. The path to my destiny. When God has something for you, it doesn't matter who stands against it.
Chadwick Aaron Boseman was born November 29th, 1976, and he died August 28th, 2020. 2020 is a mirror year. Jackie Roosevelt Robinson was born January 31st, 1919, which is a mirror year. Jackie Robinson chose to reincarnate as Chadwick Boseman. Okay? This is a very powerful old soul. And he's been here for quite a few lifetimes. Okay? Jackie Robinson chose to reincarnate 4 years later after his death and be born in 1976 as Chadwick Boseman. Both are celebrities, both are black men, and they both broke barriers. Okay? Let's take a look into their chart. Jackie Robinson's life path is a number 7. Number 7s are very spiritual. They like to investigate things. They want fairness and the truth. And he lived his life as a life path 7. He broke barriers. He was very courageous during his time, especially during a time of Jim Crow, where he dominated into a field as, a black baseball player for the major leagues, for the Brooklyn Dodgers, okay, around 1946. So as a 7, he had to be a very advanced soul. He was a spiritual soul. That's my life path number. 7s are here to enlighten the world, okay? To inform, to live in the light, to be positive, okay? And that's what he did as Jackie Robinson, okay? Now, as Jackie Robinson, he had a karmic debt number of 19. Karmic debt 19 numbers focus on the abuse of power. So this tells me that he may have abused power in that lifetime or another lifetime prior. But he definitely had to pay his karmic debt, in which he did. Because he entered the leagues in 1946, he faced a lot of racism, death threats, violence, being spit on, having his family harassed. He was no victim. He had to pay his debt because he abused power in a previous lifetime. And so that's why he had a karmic debt of a 19. Okay? But when he reincarnated as Chadwick Boseman, he did not have any debt. Chadwick was debt-free. Okay? But he did have karmic lessons. If we go back to Jackie Robinson's chart, he had a karmic lesson numbers of 6, 7, and 8. whereas Chadwick had a karmic lesson of a 6 and a 7. So he didn't have an 8. As Jackie Robinson, he learned his karmic lesson of an 8. Karmic lesson 8 numbers have to do with money and power. So somewhere money was made and maybe it was like spent, or money was used as a form of abuse with this karmic debt of 19. So he may have made money, but he didn't know how to balance money. And since he had a life path number of a 7, he had to focus on the spiritual aspect of life and not the material, monetary aspect of life. So he learned that in that lifetime as Jackie Robinson from 1919 to 1972. He cleared out the karmic number of an 8. However, as Chad Boseman, he entered this lifetime in 1976 with a karmic lesson to learn of a 6 and a 7. 6 have to do with commitment. Okay, I had that same karmic lesson of 6. Okay, to learn to make commitments to either relationships or something in your life you have to commit to that you haven't done it successfully. Okay, maybe that's some talent that you need to do, something on a job you need to do, but there's some type of commitment that wasn't made, and he didn't learn that lesson. And so he had to carry that over the next lifetime when he reincarnated as Chadwick. The karmic lesson of 7, well, his life path as Jackie Robinson was a number 7, which is spirituality. So somewhere he struggled with the 7 number. Okay, it may be that he was conflicted at the time, being a black man during Jim Crow and dominating a Major League Baseball as a baseball player, the league as a professional. He may have questioned why did this have to be him? Why did this go on? Because he wasn't learning his lesson of a 7. And even though he was a light worker and an earth angel, he still faced many challenges that he could not quite answer. And so on some level, he was very frustrated. So he did not learn that lesson either. So 6 and 7, he did not learn. Okay, so if we look at the time that he was born, Jackie Robinson, he was born in 1919. And I believe the Great Depression was, around that time, or it happened a few years after his birth. So maybe 1929, rather. So what this tells me is that he chose to reincarnate at a time where in 1919, where it was very hard, where there was a lot of oppression, there was a lot of darkness, a sadness, people weren't making money, there was poverty. And if you look at the time where he died as Chadwick in 2020, this year is very dark. It's a very trying time. Racism is, at an ultimate high. In injustice with African Americans all over again. And COVID, if we look at people dying, and this is a very sad times. Okay, so you may have said, well, if he was here to uplift humanity, why did Chadwick die so early, and why did he die in 2020? Okay, because that's the question that I was thinking, and his soul has told me what has gone on, and we'll get into that. So both of these souls in both lifetimes came to uplift, enlighten, and instill compassion, understanding, humanity, kindness, love. This was their goal, okay? And in each of these lifetimes. Jackie Robinson may have reincarnated 4 years later, which is representative of his birthday number 4. If you take January 31st, take the number 3 plus 1, you get 4. Okay? He died in 1972, and 4 years later, he reincarnated as Chadwick Boseman, okay, which is his birthday number of a 4. This also was influential between his year of 28 to 56. This is the most important part of his birth chart. And if you look at 28, 28 is the day that he died. Chadwick Boseman died. So there's no mistake and there's no coincidences here, okay? Let's get to the karmic lesson that Chadwick Boseman had to learn, a 6 and a 7. He had to learn commitment. So a few months before he died, Chadwick married his wife, who is his soulmate and twin flame. This is why he was able to also ascend. He learned his lesson of a 6. He learned the lesson of 7. If you look at social media and what all these other celebrities are saying about Chadwick Boseman and even everyday people, how he was very kind, how he was friendly, how he had such a contagious smile, how he was so good and compassionate. He lived out his life in a good way. So he learned his karmic lesson of a 7. There's nothing else Chadwick Boseman needed to learn, because he learned most of it as Jackie Robinson, and then he finished it out as Chadwick Boseman. So you see, Jackie Robinson died at the age of 53, and Chadwick Boseman died at 43. A 10-year difference between their ages. Jackie Robinson was a very, playful kind of guy. He was facetious, kind of cheeky is what I get from him. When he communicated with me, that's what I get. That, he loved to play the game. He was truthfully a team player, but he was also a leader, okay? And he did not want to die in this lifetime at age 42 as Chadwick Boseman. He did not want to die at 42, his jersey number, his number. He didn't want to taint that. So he did it at 43 to be a little cheeky and say, okay, if you want to find me out, you have to be elevated. You have to be woke. Someone like me. And if you're like me, you would be able to make this connection. Notice how good Chadwick was able to play Jackie Robinson in the movie. I saw that film several years ago, and I noticed how he played that role so well. You can see it in his eyes. His Chadwick Boseman's eyes are very deep, just like Jackie Robinson's eyes of an old soul. The soul, if you ever want to know someone's character, all you have to do is look into their eyes and you could see their soul. And he was very advanced and he was ahead of his time as Jackie Robinson. And even as Chadwick Boseman, he was ahead of his time. He did everything ahead, everything fast, because he died so young. Okay? So Chadwick chose to die at 43 because all of his lessons were learned. He lived a fulfilling life. He enlightened, elevated, and uplifted the masses. He lived in the light. He truthfully was an earth angel.